Hey guys, here are some gift wrapping ideas. I used brown craft paper and a roll of black paper to wrap all of the boxes. I typed and printed out tags on this textured scrapbook paper. I covered the box with black wrapping paper. Then wrapped it with black satin ribbon for an all-black look. Add bright colored ribbon onto black wrapping paper for a pop of color. I wrap the box with thick ribbon. I glued the ends in the back. Then added a message on the ribbon using a label maker. Another idea is to add a macrame knot. I made a Josephine knot. I used 2 pieces of macrame cord. Place the box on the center of the 2 cords. Then make a loop on each side. I placed the right side down first, then the left. Then formed an X in each loop. Bring the left end under the cord. The right end goes over the cord, under, then over. Then tighten the cords. Glue the ends in the back. And add greenery. I added this Felt Eucalyptus and a tag. Another idea is to add postage stamps. I use this stamp making kit. I mentioned this in another video, so I won't go into detail on how to use it. But basically, add your designs onto tracing paper, transfer them onto the rubber, carve them, and cut them out. I also use a stamp that I bought from Target. I stamped it on extra paper and cut it out. I tied it with red and white string. I glued the piece over the edge. Then added a tag. I also use the stamps with white ink on black wrapping paper. I used a label maker to add a message. You could also add their name. Then added greenery. You could also wrap a GIF with raffia. I used a garland tie to add a little bit of greenery. Then glue down a tag. Along with a pine cone. I carved out Christmas tree stamps in 2 sizes, then stamped them. Then tied it with red and white string. I added a garland tie, followed by a tag. Then glued a pine cone. I made these paper-like garlands for Christmas one year. I wrapped the smaller lights on brown wrapping paper. I glued all the light bulbs down. And added a label. I added a message using letter beads. I strung them on black string and knotted them. And here's how they all turned out.